Hi, I'm Scotty. Welcome to my channel, Scotties Clock World. Thanks for dropping by. Today we're going to start doing some bushing on our plate, on our Waterbury clock plate. I'll start off with the strike side. I'll get all these done on the bushing machine, and I'll do a couple on the other side, but I'll make sure that I leave two bushes to be redone. One that we can replace using a reamer in a pin vise, and the other one we'll replace just using a broach if you haven't got a set of reamers. So we'll look at the three different ways we can do it. We'll start off with the first wheel, this guy here. We've got that pivot there and that pivot there. Both needs new bushes. As we saw when we were looking at the individual wheels and bushings, they all needed to be done. So before we start with that, we'll look at the tools we're going to need. Obviously a set of reamers and hammers. The reamers are used to cut the holes in the plate. The hammers are used to push the bushing into the plate once it's been done. Once we've cut the hole in the plate to the right size, we're then going to need some of these broaches. A very efficient 5-sided cutting tool. They remove material very quickly, especially when it's brass. You have to keep an eye on what you're doing so you don't take too much metal out of the plate. A pin vise with a little drawer in each end that we can open and close to put the broaches in. As we'll see later on, we'll put a broach in like so, and then that's how we use it. We don't hold broaches in our hand, they're too hard to control. We use the collet inside a pin vise to do that. Pen and paper of some description to write our data down so we don't forget what we're doing, and a vernier for taking measurements. Alright, we're about ready to get underway now. I'll start off by taking these two screws out that I put in to hold the plates together so I could get an accurate reading on the condition of the holes. Apart. I have a little foam block that I've made so that I can insert the wheel in the correct orientation in it, so I know which pivot I'm working on. I always use the bottom one stuck in there like so. So that goes in to the bottom plate like so. When we get round to doing the top plate, the wheel goes in like that. Then the wheel sits in the foam block that way. And it's always the downside that I'm using. Alright, first thing we do, reset our vernier. We need to measure the thickness of the pivot. Which is 1.37 mil. So we'll put that into our block. We're ready to start. Jot that down, 1.37 mil. .37 mil. Over to our box of bushings, and then we start reading along the top line. We're looking for 1.37 mil, 1.25, 1.30, down there 1.40, so that's too large. We need the smaller size that we'll broach out so that the pivot would fit. So we need a number 46. So I'll get one of those out. Narrow pair of tweezers, a number 46, one of those. put the top back on so we don't spill them, because each one of those would have to be remeasured and put back into its correct selection in the box, and that would be a horrible job to have to do. Okay, first thing we do before we start, we take our bushing, pick it up in a pair of tweezers, put it in our hand like so, and then try to fit the pivot into it like so. We see it doesn't fit, so that means it's the right size for what we want. So we'll put that aside so we don't drop it or lose it somewhere. Then it's back to our box of bushings. We have a look. Number 46, we see that the outside diameter is 3 millimeters. So we'll write that down. The bushing size is number 46, and the external diameter is 3 millimeters. I'll draw the wiggly line along there, and there's our data down there. Number 46, 1.37 millimeters is the diameter of the pivot, and 3 millimeters is the diameter of the hole that we need to drill to put the bushing in. Okay, over to our reamers. 3 mil. That's 2.97. That reamer is 2.97. That's the maximum size we need, because we'll broach the hole out for it to fit properly. Now, I've found over the years, instead of going straight for the final size of 2.97, you remove material more efficiently and more quickly if you start off with the reamer 2 sizes down, and that's 1.97 mil. Right, we'll start off with our center finding tool. We'll put that into the machine, loosen the grub screw, tighten it down. All right. Move our holders in and out so that we can get our center finding tool which we want. That hole there we're working on, we'll align the center finding tool into the hole on the plate, and there it is. So now we'll see what we can do to tighten it down. Bring in both the, that one's not going to hold. Alright, we'll have to hold it. I'll have to support it while we're turning it to make sure it doesn't move. We'll start off with the number 1.97 mil cutter. We'll put that into the machine. Okay, now because these cutters are very narrow as opposed to a larger cutter like that, if you apply too much torque to them with the handle up here, you're going to screw them up, literally turn them into a corkscrew. So, using very light pressure as you turn the machine, light pressure, just keep it turning around, and once it cuts through, it'll bottom out like that. Then it'll come back up again, the spring will lift it. Take that reamer out. Go up to the next size, 2.47. Put it into the machine. And once again, start drilling the hole out. Light pressure. You don't want too much, you don't want to make a mess of the reamer. Alright. Now our third and final size, which is 3/100 of a millimetre, smaller than the hole we need to put our bushing in. Once again, turn it slowly. There we go, that's bottomed out. Take the reamer out. Now we'll pick up our bushing. Making sure that the sinkhole, the dent in it, that gets the oil put in it, facing away from you. You don't want to put it in back to front. Right, now our hammer tool. That guy there. Put it into the machine, tighten it down. And using a light hammer, we'll give it a couple of light taps to make sure it started on its journey in the correct orientation. It's not bent one way or the other or twisted, and it's in. Right. That's nice and smooth. Undo the clamp and take the plate out. Yes, that looks pretty good. That's the bushing we've just put in it. Right, if you check with the pivot, it's not going to fit in, which is what we knew and what we expected. We're now going to remount the bushing so the pivot will fit in it. Right, we'll go through that process again. Zero out our vernier. Measure the diameter of the pivot, 1.46 millimeters. Have a look on our box. 1.4, 1.5, number 47. We'll take one of those out and test it. 47. Rubber band back on the box so we don't spill it. Bushing on our hand, and then try to fit the pivot into it, and it fits in, so that's the wrong size. It's pretty tight, but it's the wrong size. So back to our box, we'll put the 47 in, take out a 46 and try that to see if this one is the right size. We've got the data from the last bushing we did. You can check it on the box again if you like, just to make sure, but we know it's another number 46, and the external diameter of the bushing is 3 millimeters. Get our plate, we want that hole there. I normally have a little mark on it, which I haven't put on there, so a pen mark, a slight one, little black dot, so you don't get mixed up and start bushing the wrong hole with the wrong size. Take the hammer out, put it back in the box, put our center finder in. There we go. That aligns the center of the hole, which goes there. Make sure that's right, and we're going to have to be very careful here because the count wheel's there. I wonder if maybe I'll check this side up there. We'll use the other end to hold it. Only just, that's for sure, but we can't hold it down this end because of the count wheel. We don't want to bend that. Check it once again. That hole there, and in it goes. All right. We'll take that tool out and we'll put in a reamer. 3 sizes too small. Put it into the tool, tighten it down, and then slowly work our way round, cutting as we go. Get the swarf off it. And there we go, that's the first one. Remove the cutter. We'll go up 1 size to 2.47 millimeters. Insert the cutter. Hold the plate, make sure it doesn't move, and then start cutting again by pushing down on the handle lightly. Once you get about halfway, lift it up, clean any swarf off it, and back into the hole again. There we go, that's bottomed out. Our third reamer, the final one, 2.97 millimeters. Well, that isn't caught. Wind it out. There we go. Now, back again. Same amount of pressure, not too much, as we ream the hole out. And there we go, that's got him. Take the reamer out, put it back in the block, put our hammer in, tighten him down, find our pivot, check to make sure that the oil sink is on the downside, align it carefully with a pair of tweezers, then lower the hammer on it, give it a couple of light taps to make sure that it's heading in a straight direction, not running at an angle. That's alright. Then 3 or 4 taps. Last one, a strong one to seat it properly. See what we've got. That's our bushing there. That looks alright. Alright, now you can see that the pivot doesn't fit in. So we're now going to broach out that bushing. Now that we've got the bushing inside the plate, we now have to open it up so that the pivot will fit in it, which it obviously doesn't at the moment. So to do that, we need to use a broach, and we need to find a broach that's the right size. And I think this one's a little bit too small. We'll put in the hole and see. Yep, slides through. That's a little bit too small. We need a slightly larger one. I think that will be, looks a bit big. No, that goes in. Right, that's the one we need. Fair enough. Can't be right all the time, I guess. So we'll open up the collet on our pin vise, push the square end in so it holds it in place. Then take the plate up in your hand, align the brooch into the bushing. What we've got to do now, I'll put that down there so I can demonstrate. We now have to keep the brooch 90 degrees perpendicular all across the face of the plate, like so. If we come in at an angle like that, or like that, they're exaggerated maybe, but if we come in on an angle like that, we're going to cut a hole too big and the pivot will run on top and bottom of the bushing and form lines on it. So once again, insert the brooch into the plate, taking a grip on the pin vise, turn it very slowly. These are very efficient cutting machines and they'll make a mess of your work in no time. A few cuts, try the pivot. Nope, not yet. Align the brooch again. You can actually use the pillars up here as a reference and keep them parallel to that. A few more turns. Try the pivot again. No, ooh, just starting to fit in. Get organised again. This time we'll look at it this way. Half a dozen turns maximum. We don't want to make a hole too big because we've got to start all over again. See how we go. That's virtually in there. You can see it's not quite. Now we have to be very, very careful because we're very close. We don't want to cut too big a hole. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and take the brooch out again. There we go. It's in there, sitting in there nicely. Now this isn't finished yet. We don't know if the hole we've broached is the correct size yet or not. So what we have to do, I'll put that plate aside. Now I'll turn the wheel upside down. We're now going to put a bushing in that hole there, and then once we've broached it out so that the pivot sits in there smoothly, we then put both plates together, tighten them down, and then check them to make sure that it runs freely, just in case we're out microscopically and it catches, because friction we don't want. Alright, put those aside and we'll now put the other bushing in. Alright, we're now ready to start broaching out the bushing we've just put in. We've selected the same size brooch as last time. Insert it into the hole. Align it perpendicular across the plate. And then slowly do 6 or 7 turns and then remove the brooch. Test the pivot. It doesn't fit in, as we expected of course, but it doesn't fit in. So broach back into the bushing again. Another half dozen turns. Remove the brooch. And there we go. It fits in this time. And that seems to be pretty good. However, what we need to do now is put both plates together, and that way we'll know whether the bushing, this one is a tiny little bit tight there, I would think. So we're about to discover. Plates on. Align the bushing. Yep, you can see it doesn't spin. The one at the top is a little bit tight still. So another 4 turns on the brooch. Align it perpendicular. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remove. Put the plates together again. Line the pivot on the bush. Those pillars aligned. You can see that the pivot is coming through, but it's still a little bit tight. And we can tell which end is tight, because if we look down here, the shoulder of the arbor is sitting on the plate. And when we look in here, the shoulder of that arbor is not sitting on the plate there. So it means we'll put another 4 turns on the broach, and we should be getting pretty close, I would think. Line the broach perpendicular. Get it lined up, ready to roll. All right, 1, 2, 3. And that slipped right through, so I'd say that would be pretty damn good. Line the pivot. There we go. And the posts and the plate, hold it down. Not quite spinning yet. Needs a little bit more at the top. I thought that would have done it, but not quite. And I think we run out of distance on our broach, I think. Align it, get it perpendicular. Yep, we need to go up a size. Okay, remove the collar. It's got a good grip on that. That's better. Now we can take it out. The collar back into the pin vise. Put the jewels back on it, or the top back on it. Now we need to find a broach that's slightly larger than that. Oh, I don't think so. We'll give it a try. Just makes it. Alright, we'll have to be very careful of that one. That's going to cut material very, very quickly. Put the broach into the pin vise. That collar is playing hard to get on with. Let's open it up a tiny little bit. We'll see how it goes. Yep, just fits. All right. Well, little bit of repair work on the way. That should now fit over there so that we can tighten it down. There we go. Right. Align our broach again into the bushing, being aware that this is quite a large size broach relative to the hole. Align it, get it perpendicular. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. Then remove it. We're down to the critical stage now, so we've got to be very, very careful with what we do. Wheel align. Posts in place. And there we go. Those 2 bushings are now correctly placed, and when we move the wheel backwards and forwards, you can see there's virtually no movement at all on both sides. There we have it. That's how easy it is to put in a bushing. If you've got a tool, whether it's a Broaching or a KMW, doesn't matter. That's the way it's done. I've finished doing the bushings now that I'm going to use the machine for. So the last thing we do now, having tested each one individually, is we put all the wheels of the train in between the plates and then have a look to see how well they mesh together. And we're finding that these are still tight. The one that's a problem is the first wheel there. And having a look at it, where you can see there's a gap, a serious gap in there between the pivot and the wheel that I can stick a pair of tweezers into. So that is obviously too tight at that end. This end down here seems to be all right. But what we have to do now is take the plates apart and broach that bushing out a little bit more. That's better. You can see the gap there quite easily. There's the gap there. There's the gap there. To bring that in so that we've got some end play, because there's absolutely no end play on that wheel there. So I'll remove these screws, put them back in the dish, take the top plate off, and it's that bushing there that we need to open up a tiny little bit. Being careful of the escape wheel because it's still half in the plate. Alright, we'll take a little bit more metal out of there using our broach. Not very much, keeping it at right angles to the plate. And that's the end of that broach. We're going to need another one, the next size up I think, which we had before. I'll take that out, swap the broach over. Put it into the pin vise, tighten it down. And back to that bushing there. We need to take just the smallest amount off. Align our broach 90 degrees all round and rotate it 3 or 4 times. I'll take the escape wheel out actually, that'll make it a lot quicker to check these other ones, because that's the tricky guy to get into his other bushing. There we go, that's got it out. Okay, back on again. I'll put a screw down there on that and that'll hold that. For the moment we only want it lightly, and I'll put one into there. That'll tie the plates down a little bit to make it a little bit easier for us to get all the pivots back into their bushes. Maintenance cam there, just about. Down a tiny little bit. Nope, they're all in the process of moving. Take the fly up for the moment, we'll put that in once we've done the rest. Maintenance cam, just there but not quite. First wheel back in again. Third wheel align him, but it's a maintenance cam that's giving us a problem at the moment. So once I've got that maintenance cam in, then the rest will probably drop into place, I would think. Alright, maintenance cam's right. First wheel, up and over tiny, and now. And the third wheel, back to there. Alright, that's got him. Now, hope everything's still in place. Yep, feels like it. Alright, what do we got? You can see that's turning very freely now. It wasn't before. That's because I broached that bushing out a tiny little bit. It's spinning nice and freely. Alright, so that shows that all those bushings are now correct. So the next thing we're going to do is I've left 2. I've left that one and that one there. This one here we're going to use a broach on, and I'll show you how to use just a broach. One of these tools, not that one, it's too big, but one of these 5-sided tools, and we'll put a bushing into that hole there, and then we'll use on this hole here We'll then use a reamer in a pin vise and we'll ream that out, put a new bushing in it, and then you will have seen the 3 different ways we can bush a clock movement. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about antique and vintage clock repair, be sure to hit the subscribe button or become a channel member to watch my videos ad-free. Thank you to my supporters, Don Dressel, David Phillips, Graham FP, Robert Hornman, Mike Messerschmidt, Stephen Watts, Sidus, Rolf, Tony Paisley, Jeff Clements, Whitney Kovner, Walt Morgan, Dennis O'Connor, Robert Baldwin, Douglas Mueller, John, Martin Olivia, Douglas Rowlandson, Bill Leeds, Getzip, Brooks Rowand, Jim, Scarla Dawn, Rodney Van Meter and Elizabeth Smith.